This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome! Episode number 227 for January 8th, 2017. Every year in January, Cast of Wonders takes the month off to recharge, plan the year ahead, and highlight some of our favorite episodes. Each week in January, a different member of the crew will present their favorite story of 2016. Hello everyone, this is Danny Daly, Assistant Editor at Cast of Wonders. You've probably heard my voice before if you're a long-time listener. I've been with Cast of Wonders since the start as a narrator, then as a slush reader, and lately as one of the two new assistant editors here, along with Catherine Inskip. My staff pick for 2016 is episode 215, Problematic, by Brian Harrell. It originally aired as the second of our Banned Book Week stories on September 27, 2016, and is beautifully narrated by Tatiana Gray. This story is a Cast of Wonders 2016 original. And now, we've a tale to tell.
Problematic by Brian Harrell. The main office is as Spartan as the rest of the campus. 3 plain gray metal folding chairs arranged in front of Headmistress Denali's equally plain and unadorned wooden desk. In one of the chairs, the slim 10-year-old frame of Luna Vega McPherson squirms restlessly, twisting strands of dark curly hair around a forefinger, and not at all trying to disguise her boredom. In the other 2 chairs sit her parents, looking equally uncomfortable but for different reasons. I confess to taking some degree of pleasure in the final phase of the application process. Call it a guilty pleasure, but I do so enjoy seeing overbearing parents humbled. Since the Banks Institute is self-financing and offers only full scholarships or flat-out rejection, those of means have no more influence than those without. The headmistress's face is deeply lined and wizened, her gray hair drawn into a severe bun. Through a pair of ancient wire-rimmed bifocals, complete with a thin chain securing them loosely behind her neck, her dark eyes regard the 3 seated guests intently. "I understand your concerns, Mr. McPherson," she says with all business crispness, her Gujarati-spiced lilt sounding far more youthful than one might expect. "But don't let the lack of bells and whistles fool you. Our graduates include more than a dozen current and former state representatives, 2 governors, 3 founders of Fortune 500 companies, and more scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, and artists of varying stripes than I can recall without having to look them up." That's utter hogwash, of course. Mr. Nolly knows the current professional disposition of each and every student that has ever passed through these unassuming halls. "Our athletics program," she continues, "despite its limited size, competes on equal footing with all of the local high schools in team sports. In individual sports, we surpass them. And of course, our academic program is, without a hint of exaggeration, second to none." The father pauses, shifts, straightens. Yes, I know." He clears his throat with a cough, looks down and briefly picks at something invisible on his tie. "But the academics, well..." The mother, her face twitching with impatience, steps in and blurts, "Gregory's concerned about the..." She pauses, inhales as if preparing to hold her breath for a deep plunge into a cold sea, then spits out, "the problematic parts of the curriculum." Is the hint of a smile twitching at the corners of Headmistress's tightly pressed lips? I can't be sure. "Problematic parts?" She feigns confusion. "Dear me, have we gone and let the problematic parts infect our curriculum? I had no idea. Some headmistress I must be." "We heard," the father begins. The headmistress ignores him, her sharp enunciation flowing over and dousing Mr. McPherson's brief, hesitant stammer. "As a private institution," she states, "we are not bound by amendment revisions, nor subject to the Trigger Act, as are public schools. But, protests the father, surely there must be some materials and— Mr. McPherson! Mr. Nolly again cuts him off. There are no half measures in a Banks Institute education. In for a penny, in for a pound. This is an all-or-nothing opportunity. The headmistress has not raised her voice beyond conversational levels, but the father nonetheless shrinks into his chair like a chastened schoolboy. He glances questioningly at his wife. She nods. Okay, he concedes. Okay, but how long before we know if she's accepted? It will take some time to weigh the various candidates. You must understand that competition for slots is fierce, and unfortunately, even some of the best and brightest are not accepted. She looks down at Luna's open file folder spread across her desk. This is, of course, no reflection of their abilities. Were your daughter not already an outstanding student, she would not have made it this far. I nod sagely, to add emphasis to Mr. Nolly's words. The parents smile at the compliment, looking over at Luna, who is studying intently something fascinating on the hem of her sundress. Now, there is a waiver we are required by law to provide, but it will be the only one. After that, if your daughter is accepted, there will be no turning back, no preferential treatment, no cherry-picking literature, no special dispensations. Again the father looks to the mother. Again she nods. Very well, says the headmistress, turning to me. Miss Kulik, would you be so kind as to escort the young mistress to the library while we continue? Yes, Mr. Nolly. Come along, Luna, and let's have a look around the school. Luna jumps to her feet, obviously overjoyed to get out of the cold, hard chair in the cold, hard office with the cold, hard old lady. Everyone calls me Lunita, she sings. Well, then, I shall call you Lunita as well, and you may call me Miss Kulik. As we walk out, I hear the rustle of paper as the headmistress begins reading. You are hereby advised that should your child be accepted to attend the Banks Institute, they will undertake a rigorous course of study. Further be advised that your child will be exposed to works of art and literature that might include depictions of violence, substance abuse, broken families, misanthropy, misogyny, suicide, matricide, patricide, fratricide, potentially upsetting depictions of privilege, colonialism, sexism, homosexism, heterosexism, cissexism, class warfare, global warfare, harsh language, cruelty to animals. The door closes behind us and we start down the hall. What's matricide? Asks Luna. Over the years, I have amassed a vast catalogue of canned responses to such inquiries, as there is an ever-growing list of trigger words, which, by law, I cannot discuss with or define for anyone under the age of 21 without a signed release. I reply without hesitation. You know those tags on mattresses that say it's against the law to remove them? Yeah, my brother says you'll go to jail if you rip 'em. Exactly. That's matricide. And right at the end of this hall is the library. Luna gazes at the rows of book-lined shelves and scattered tables and chairs with a frown of blank confusion. Where are all the computers? There are none. I thought this was a library. It is. How do you download books then? I smile at that. You download them here. I tap my left and right index fingers on my temples. With these, I add, moving the fingers inwards to point at my eyes. Oh, says Luna simply. I step to the shelf and pull out a book. The title, by law, has been blacked out, but the cover illustrations have been allowed to remain. See? The young girl twists her mouth in a frankly quizzical grimace. There's no screen. It's not that kind of a book. Her mouth drops open in silent awe, eyes widening, a sudden awareness flashing within her bright green eyes. She flinches visibly, recoils back a step. These are those books, she gapes, her voice barely above a whisper. Those books? The ones that are... She hesitates. Problematic, She pronounces the word slowly, sounding out the 4 syllables. Yes, potentially harmful. Do you know what potentially means? Of course, she says, regaining her preteen composure. It means it might be or it might not be. Exactly. It looks like a box, like a big flat box of chocolates. It's very much like a box. A Pandora's box, perhaps, though I dare not say it, as that can be misconstrued as a sexual reference. Her parents are likely still listening to the 17-page list of actionable content and have not yet signed the waiver. What's in it? Oh my, where would I start? Let's just say a story. There's a big man and a boy on a raft. Yes, and they're on a journey, and this tells that story. Is this one of the books that can hurt you? Well, it has things that might make you feel bad. And traumatized. Well, better to change the subject. I place the volume on the table and pull out another. Her face twists into a grimace of horror. Is that man going to kill that whale with a spear? You'd have to read it and find out. Another book. They look like firemen, but they're shooting fire instead of water. Another. That's a dragon. A flicker of enthusiasm edges into her voice. And a little person. And one more. That's just a half-bald guy with a ruffly collar. Boring. Perhaps, I laugh. Shakespeare alone fits into no less than 73% of the actionable content categories. I have to organize some shelves. You can look around if you like while we wait for your parents to finish up. But whatever you do, I sweep my hands dramatically over the scattered books and with a conspiratorial whisper say, Be very careful with these. She stares at me exactly as one would expect a preteen to stare at an adult who has just made a big show of stating the stupidly obvious. I turn and walk off, stepping between 2 sets of shelves and making a show of examining and rearranging the volumes. But I watch her, through the gaps. She looks around, then wanders away from the table to the windows, gazes at the woods beyond the soccer field, turns and comes back to the scattered books. She slowly circumnavigates the table, examining the covers. Occasionally, her hand darts out and delicately brushes the faded gilt page edges. She ignores the bard completely, shuns the firemen and their flamethrowers, avoids the harpoon aimed at the white whale. But the unlikely pair on the raft and the little person facing down the dragon hold her attention. Come on, kid, I silently implore, not daring to even mouth the words. Luna slips her fingers under the edge of a buckram-bound frontboard, the one emblazoned with the red dragon, yanks the hand back, as if it had been singed, tilts her head, reaches out once more. We return to the main office to find Headmistress Denali and Luna's parents in the hallway. She shakes their hands, thanks them for coming, and tells them they will be informed as soon as possible whether there will be a place for their daughter this coming fall. Goodbye, Lunita, I call after them as they collect their daughter and head out. Miss Denali watches them go, then turns to me, eyebrows arched. I say nothing, but my face tells her all she needs to know. She nods curtly, then disappears into her office. I walk the long walk back to the library, my mind awash in memories of the day I had first stood before that little round table. 5 books, 5 illustrations, 5 blacked-out titles. I remember the battle of wills between my childhood curiosity and the warnings of peril and pain, of how words could conjure up my darkest fears. As a child, I had imagined that the books were living things, imbued with a magic great and terrible, had even fancied they had trembled and shivered, barely containing the mysteries between their rigid covers, the dreadful unknowns which might be released by the mere act of opening the cover and laying bare the words within. Words, which once seen could not be unseen. Sometimes, even now, I'm not sure it was my imagination at all. I stop at the small round table. Upon it lay the 5 volumes, resting exactly where they had been set down. Undisturbed. Unopened. Dear Miss Vega and Mr. McPherson, I wrote in the graceful looping cursive that Miss Denali had painstakingly taught me not so many years ago. The flowing and elegant script I now taught my own students would teach all the new students who would arrive in the fall. But Luna would not be among them.
This story really resonates with me. Since the mid-1980s, media censorship has been a pretty big concern of mine. I remember writing a paper in high school on the Parents Music Resource Center about their successful campaign to encourage record companies to label recordings with parental warnings for explicit lyrics. Since that time, I've had a keen interest in all forms of censorship, and our Banned Books event really holds a special place in my heart. In the world author Brian Harrell created, the majority of kids are denied the chance to make their own choices regarding what to read and study. They have been made to be afraid of books and subjects that have been declared problematic. There is an unfinished list of 19 thematic elements that presumably don't pass muster as suitable for the standard student. If that door hadn't closed, that list would have grown longer. The world of this story is horrifying to me, and it also intrigues me. As I've gotten older, I find I am less harsh of my criticisms of labeling content, as there are themes and situations people choose to avoid for a variety of reasons. But the thought of any outright ban on creative ideas makes me shudder. As Marguerite mentioned when this story first aired, there are many different schools of thought when it comes to content notes, or trigger warnings. I am sympathetic to those who feel their existence cheapens the experience a consumer may have with some prior warnings regarding content, but also realize that the ability to make an informed choice on the media one consumes can help to ensure a positive experience. I wish I could say that this is merely a hypothetical debate, but just this past November, a school in the state of Virginia removed 2 classic pieces of American literature from their library shelves and curriculum for their use of the N-word, after a parent complained to the school board. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain and To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee were allowed back into classrooms after protests and a petition, but the knee-jerk reaction to ban them, to begin with, disturbs me. Thankfully, it seems also that this same school board has since reversed its policy of pulling problematic subject from the curriculum prior to actually investigating complaints. That does help me believe that this story really is a work of fiction, and hopefully nothing prophetic. Cast of Wonders relies on your donations to help pay our authors and bring you the best in young adult audio fiction week after week. If you've enjoyed this story, please consider making a donation using the PayPal link on our site. Every one-time and monthly subscription helps, and you have our heartfelt thanks. You can share your appreciation for this story by leaving us a review on iTunes, sharing the episode with your friends and family, or discussing it on the EA forum, forum.escapeartists.net. We are at Cast of Wonders on Twitter. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and is brought to you by the creative team of our editor and host, Marguerite Kenner, assistant editors Danny Daly and Catherine Inskip, audio producer Jeremy Carter, and our slush team, Olivia Denham, Sally Gill, Alexis Goebel, Andrew Kim, Ellery McAllister, and Setsu Uzume. Our episodes are released under the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can download it to any device you like or share it with a friend, but you can't change or sell it. Our theme, Appeal to Heavens, is by Alexei Nav from musicalley.com. Thanks for listening.